In this video lecture, we're going to talk about discount usability testing, triangulation, and the DEER model for setting up and running usability tests. Let's talk about the discount model first. What is this thing? It's a fast, cheap, lightweight model for setting up a usability test, and it's based on 4 steps. Number 1, you define the user profile. Number 2, you create a task-based scenario. Quick digression. Think about the ISO definition of usability. It involves specific people doing specific things in a specific context. That's what you're doing right here. So who are you working with, and what are they doing, where are they doing it? Then, when you run the test itself, you're going to use a think aloud protocol. In other words, you want your participants to speak aloud and say whatever comes into their mind. If it's good, bad, what have you, just record it, take down those notes, and keep going on. Then, once you're done, make the changes that you need to make and retest until you get the product up and running the way it should be. So why is this discount model good? What's good about it? Why does it work? Well, as we said already, it's fast, it's cheap, it's lightweight. You can do it pretty quickly, it's relatively inexpensive, and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to do. Why is that? Well, you have 3 to 5 users typically. More than that, you're just going to be finding the same things over and over and over again. Discount model works pretty well for both on-site and in-lab tests. So you can go to work sites, do the tests there. You can invite people to laboratories and do the tests there. Either way, it still works. Discount model is good for formative tests. Remember that when you're working on a project and trying to develop it and get the product the way you want it, formative testing, making it work, improving it on the way through. That is where discount modeling really just shines. You're going to focus on identifying problems, and in particular, in small chunks of a very large product. There are no statistics involved. Well, usually, you can find some basic statistics, but with 3 to 5 users, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything that is statistically valid. There's a very strong focus on users in this method, and it's also easy to triangulate your results. Wait a minute, triangulate, what you talking about? Triangulate. What you're doing when you triangulate results is you're going to view a problem, that usability issue, the product you're working on, you're trying to improve. You're going to view it from multiple angles and try to locate, identify, and figure out how to fix that problem more clearly. The idea comes from geometry. So let's assume that you're walking along the shore and you see a boat out in the distance. You're at point A. How far away is that boat? I can't tell from where I am. I can guess, but I don't know for sure. So what you do is put a stick in point A. You measure, all right, here's a line going out from point A to the sailboat. You walk over to point B, put another stick in the ground there. So you know, all right, I can measure from A to B, and I can see what the angle is between AB and A in the boat, and I know the angle between AB and B in the boat, so I just do a little simple math, and hey, I discover how far away is that sailboat. Real easy. You're going to do something similar here. It's not actually involving math, but it's conceptual. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to use multiple methods and data sources and compare them. So for example, if we're doing a research study and we have quantitative metrics, we have numbers that we have run, we have collected time on task, amount of money, etc., things like that, we can compare those to qualitative comments. What are the things people said, the ordinary users said? Then we can also take a look at what experts have had to say once they reviewed the product, and then we can identify what those have in common and say, okay, yes, this particular thing is the issue. Similarly, we can do customer satisfaction surveys. We can see how long does it take customers to complete a certain task. We can see, is our revenue going up or down? If our product has a good rep in the market, it's going up. And then people are happy and they quickly complete their tasks. But if there are problems, we can identify them based on these issues. So then what kind of data can you use to triangulate? The answer is all sorts of stuff. I'm going to say pretty much anything. I'm going to give you a partial list here, just quick ideas. So you can use customer satisfaction surveys, focus groups. If you don't know what a focus group is, it's a little bit like a group interview. Not exactly the same, but very similar. You have web analytics like Google Analytics. You can take a look at help desk logs for people when they call in or visit the website to try to get help. You can see what your salespeople have to say from potential customers. You can find out on the website how many people are actually clicking through and buying. You can interview people. You can do thematic analysis. You can take the words that people have said, look for common themes. You can look and measure how long does it take people to complete tasks. You can do heuristic evaluations, cognitive walkthroughs. By the way, those last two are actual methods that we're going to learn how to do this semester. So you can use all sorts of data to triangulate. The point is, you just need to do it. So then, what are the discount model's flaws? Well, the discount model can fail. It's not foolproof. It can fail if you have bad timing. So if you test the product too soon, oh, well, gee, we don't have the latest version, so we've tested something that no one's going to use. Or, oh, we've tested too late. Well, it's locked in now, so, oh, gosh. So you have to have good timing, figure out when is the right time to test something. If you test on the wrong users, it's no good. So you're going to test, let's say, a video game. You want to test a new button sequence, A, B, B, up, down. Is this an effective button sequence? You test it, and all your users say, no, this is a terrible button sequence. Well, what if your users were all members of a senior citizens bus tour that came by your place of business, and you just recruited some of them? Well, maybe they're arthritic. Maybe they don't have good eyesight. They can't see the cues. Maybe, I don't know, all sorts of possible things. But your target audience is going to be Twitch streamers. Well, those people probably have really fleet fingers and they're used to using controls. So, well, you just tested the wrong users and your results are no good. So make sure you have the right users. The observer effect. Anytime that you are watching somebody, they will have an effect on how they behave. It's just a way, it's human nature. So the point being, when you're doing a usability test, you want to try to put your users at ease and make them forget that you were there. Sometimes you can identify the wrong task for people to do. Again, think about the definition of usability. Specific people doing a specific thing in a specific place. So if you have selected the wrong thing for them to do, your results can't be good. Multiple user groups. Remember, individual people, specific people doing a specific thing in a specific place. Well, you need to test multiple groups if you have multiple audiences. Sometimes you can just straight up have multiple problems with the product itself. So you've identified one problem, it's all fixed. Nope, that problem is hiding something else. You've just solved the low-hanging fruit. That's all you've done. Sometimes your audiences are going to be skeptical. We want statistical evidence. For example, the C-suite dwellers. They're going to want a lot of evidence before they're convinced to spend a lot of time and money stopping production, redoing things. So if you run into that problem, you probably need to do a bigger test. And sometimes safety issues can hide. So if I run 3 people through and nobody has a safety issue, hey, great, fine, fantastic. But if I ran 7 or 8 people through, oh, all the rest would have, oh, gee, someone could get really hurt using this? Oh, no. So sometimes 3 people, it just isn't enough to find problems, particularly if it has to do with safety. So the question is then, when should you run a usability test? There's a multi-part answer to this. It depends on how simple or complex the system is that you are testing. So if you have a relatively simple system, it's a good idea to follow a thing called the thermostat model. Now, it doesn't matter if you have an old school thermostat or something new and high tech. The point is they both work basically the same. They are taking temperatures at different levels. So I want to find out at a low, quote-unquote, low temperature, medium temperature, and high temperature. How does this work? Ideally, you're going to test 3 different versions of the product. You've got a low fidelity version, a medium fidelity version, and a high fidelity version. So for example, a low fidelity version might be something like a paper prototype. In this case, we have an example of someone making an app. Alright, so I'm going to design this app, and I want the buttons to be here, and I want the pictures to show up here, and I want to be able to click here. Okay, great. Do you want to just go ahead and start programming this thing? No, it's a waste of time and money. So instead, you draw it out on paper, give the paper pieces to your participant, and say, here, this is what you need to do. For example, try logging in. Okay, I would click here. Great, you take that piece of paper away, give them the next screen that would come up, something like that. So paper prototyping is a low fidelity version of the product. You can then do medium fidelity with something like a wireframe. Now, if you're not familiar with a wireframe, it's essentially a roughly programmed version of whatever interface it is or the structure that you are working with. So it can be interactive, but it's not fully built out. So it's just got placeholder stuff. And again, it's very much like that paper prototype. You can say, user, please try to complete this particular task. So go home and then open up a video. I'd click here, and then when the user clicks, the page changes, but it's still not very sophisticated. It's very rough. You aren't spending a lot of time and money. Then we've got high fidelity. High fidelity, you usually want to test a beta version. What's a beta version? I'm glad you asked. A beta version works kind of like this. So you've got in the development sequence, you have something, the really rough version, the pre-alpha, it works into the alpha, which sort of works. Then you work it up to the beta. The beta is the thing that is just about ready to go to market. It's not quite there. You need some fixes, but that's reason why you need to test it before it goes out. So you want to test that beta version that's almost ready to go out. Once it's polished up to that release candidate state, then, okay, can we sell this thing? Yes. Send it out the door. So the beta version is an excellent time to do some usability testing. Things are far enough that they're almost done, and those little tweaks that you make in the usability testing process, they'll make it, well, maybe not perfect, but they'll make it really nice. So great, this model sounds pretty good, but what if you can't run that many tests? For example, your boss says, well, we don't have time in the development sequence. There's no time to do all these testings. Or we don't have the budget for it. What are you going to do? Well, you can skip some tests. You still want to do usability testing, but you don't have to do all three. Sometimes you can do 2 tests and skip 1. How about that? In that case, you want to test the low fidelity and high fidelity versions. What if you only have time or money to do 1 test and you're going to skip 2 tests? The answer there? Test that low fidelity version. Why is that? It's because you don't want to waste time, you don't want to waste money, and, well, yeah, you don't want to just develop that loser product that would have failed a full-on lo-fi test. So, for example, the Nokia N-Gage, it's notorious, I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically it is a combination of a cell phone and a gaming console, and it crashed and burned. It was almost impossible to use, nobody liked it, and, well, it died. And it just about took the company with it. So, don't waste time and money. Do a low fidelity version test, and if something is a turkey, put it out of its misery and move on. The second part of the answer to when you should usability test is if you have a more complex system. Now remember, we just talked about simple systems. A complex system is going to be something like, well, Homer Simpson's nuclear control device. He is in charge of the safety at the Springfield nuclear plant. And the thing is, if you make one change on this board, it's probably going to affect something else. So it's kind of like a spider web. You tug on one end of it, the other end vibrates. So what you need to do in this case is test continuously. You want to quote-unquote map the system. So, okay, if this works over here, what does this affect? Okay, trace the ripple effects. Know, if I change part A, what will happen to part C? What will happen to part F? So this is what you want to do. You can't just go in and say, I'm redoing everything. You test judiciously, do small parts, figure out what can be tweaked. So we've talked a little bit about the general ideas behind setting up a usability test and investigating the results, but how do you actually set up and run a usability test? We're going to spend a lot of time this semester telling you the details of it, but here is the big outline. You want to follow a thing called the DEAR model. It stands for Discovery, Evaluation, Analysis, and Reporting. Let's talk about this model and break it down. So discovery, what's involved with that? First thing you want to do is define your user group. Remember, sometimes you have multiple groups, sometimes you have a single group. It's important to define those people. Identify what it is they are doing. As we've emphasized already in the ISO definition of usability, specific people doing specific things in a specific context. But I want to emphasize that the idea of tasks here. A task is something that a user does. It's not a step that the user follows. It's an end in itself. So if the user is being told to follow a set of steps, well, testing one of those steps, yeah, I guess you can do it, but it doesn't help a whole lot. What you want to do is find out, as they're progressing through, how is this particular step, how is this particular sequence of action helping? So identify big, higher level things that people are doing. When you do, identify the places and how users are going to interact with the product. You can identify the quote-unquote friction points. Then you're going to work out the testing logistics. Logistics are things like, when are you going to hold the tests? Where are you going to hold the tests? What sort of supplies do you need? Do you need to offer the participants any inducements? For example, a cold beverage. The answer to that, by the way, is always yes. Evaluation. Once you've set up your basics ideas, then you need to create a test plan. A test plan is a little bit like a TV script or a movie script. You've got things planned out. All right, my participants are going to arrive here at this time. I will go, you, my research assistant, will go out and meet them. You will say these things to them as you walk them in. Once you arrive, you will offer them the cold beverage. Chat with them a little bit, make them feel at ease. Then gently lead into the discussion of what the project is. You will say these things. So you've got this just scripted out like you would not believe. Then, when you're talking about scripting, we go through the entire process. And matter of fact, you've even planned out how you are going to evaluate the results. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. But the point is, you've created a test plan. After you create that test plan, you're going to pilot test it. Whenever you pilot test, don't worry about the initial results. Don't start thinking immediately, oh, here are results. You need more results before you have anything to do. And besides, that first pilot test, it's going to fail. I mean, something is going to go wrong. Matter of fact, it could go spectacularly wrong. That's okay. Your job is to chill. You are going to just make allowances, figure out, all right, that didn't work. What can I tweak? What in my script can I change? You will then make those adjustments, and once you've made the tweaks, you're going to run the actual test, and you're going to collect your data. Once you've collected your data, you need to analyze it. Remember, you created that test plan before, and you already specified how you're going to evaluate that data. Part of that is triangulation. What different measurements are you going to take? What are you going to compare to what? Are you going to compare apples to oranges, apples to bananas, bananas to kumquats, oranges to grapefruits? Who knows? This is your job to decide beforehand. Then, once you have made your analysis, you're going to be able to identify core issues with that product, figure out what is the most important thing, what is the low-hanging fruit we need to focus on to make it as good as it can be right now before we run another test. Then, once you have collected all that data, you need to report it. Focus on the report's audience. This is a fundamental concept in technical communication. Matter of fact, the technical communication idea is there are three fundamental things you need to know about tech comm. Number one, audience. It's absolutely fundamental. The second is also audience. And as you may be able to guess, the third fundamental concept in technical communication is audience. So, whenever you write up whatever it is you have to say, you need to say it in the right way and to the right people, because even if you have discovered the secret to life, the universe, and everything, if you say it the wrong way to the wrong people, no one's going to pay attention. So, focus on your report's audience. When you do present your results, make sure you're honest, but also be sensitive. After all, every product is somebody's baby. Even if it's ugly, if you tell them your baby is ugly, they're going to be somehow offended. So they may have thick skin, they may be really thin-skinned, whatever the case. You need to be honest. So if there's a problem, let them know, but don't be rude about it. When you do your reports, make sure you try to include both quantitative and qualitative data whenever you can. Numbers are really good for identifying problems. So if 9 out of 10 dentists surveyed agree that they recommend dentine for their patients who chew gum, well, that's a pretty good thing to know. Those numbers help there. But for illustrating a problem, you have to describe words. So, for example, the baby on the right, that baby on a scale from 1 to 10, that baby is a 2. Well, what exactly about the baby is a 2? Oh, those eyebrows, that nose. Ah, okay. So that explains why there is a problem with the baby. So again, use numbers to identify problems, and then use your words to illustrate what the problem is, why it's important, and what needs to be fixed. What have we learned today? We've learned about the discount model, we've learned how it works, and when you should or shouldn't use it. We've also learned about triangulation in research. Why should you always use it? And we've also learned the basic concepts in setting up a study and running that study according to the DEAR model. That's what I got for you today. Thanks very much.